Welcome back to the Smugsy Show. I'm Smugsy, your host. Every Wednesday we meet here to talk about important things and important people. This week, why the Brooklyn shooter is everything wrong with America, plus some of my favorite knock-knock jokes. But first, the Smugsy Show is presented to you by Smugsiggies, sleek and elegant joint ciggies made with organic cannabis rolled in all-natural, locally sourced paper. Look for Smugsiggies in the pretty indigo and marigold packs. Okay, Frank James. Not James Frank, Frank James. Who is he? You might think he's a Russian soldier gone AWOL because he's such a bad shot, but he was the Brooklyn shooter. You may have heard yesterday in New York City another horrific act of gun violence. This time, Frank James walked into a Brooklyn subway station with a backpack full of weapons and ammunition and a gas mask and a canister of smoke, and he opened the canister and released the smoke and put on his gas mask and fired 33 bullets and shot 10 people. Didn't kill anyone, thankfully, but you gotta wonder, it's a pretty bad kill rate. 23 people were injured because 13 were hospitalized with smoke inhalation and panic attacks. So first, Frank James, yes, it is in part your parents' fault for giving you two first names. That undoubtedly caused some identity crisis. Nonetheless, there's no excuse. If you're going to be a shooter, you should at least know how to shoot. And my point is that in America, I think there should be a baseline IQ test for the purchase of firearms. Nothing in the Second Amendment says that idiots should be able to buy guns, and an IQ test and any weapons confiscated from morons like Frank James. The weapons should be sent to Ukraine. The idiots, the shooters, the bad shooters should be sent to Russia to fight for Team Z. And Frank James, you can always change your name. So now some of my knock-knock jokes. Well, what I mean by that is I've been spending a lot of my time now knocking on doors ever since I left bar school for Zelensky. As many of you know, I had been identifying as the Barstool Cougar and very engaged in the Barstool drama and life as one of popular character. Well, the war changed all that, and now I'm fighting for Zelensky, and I'm doing my part, and my part, I've decided, is to create refugee housing. Yeah, it's a tall order, but you got to think big, write your own narrative. So refugee housing involves, first, at least in the small town where I live, creating a law that would allow it. So the process is you have to collect signatures, and in order to collect signatures, you have to knock on a lot of doors. And let's face it, it's after COVID. A lot of people at home, but a lot of people haven't answered their door in 2.5 years. So I thought I'd share with you some of the people I've met at these doors and some of the lessons I've drawn in the exercise. The first is to, especially if you're a woman, a middle-aged woman, be sure to have a clean bathrobe and, I don't know, maybe check for food in your teeth before you answer the door. But what I learned in knocking on doors and having so many middle-aged women answer in bathrobes is why I get so many advertisements from Heidi Carey. She is the maker, designer of very luxurious women's bathrobes, like French terry cloth, just, the perfect collar and look lovely. And I've wondered why I'm inundated with ads for bathrobes, but now I know, because apparently any second now I could just spend my time at home in a bathrobe, and if somebody knocks on the door, I want to look my finest. So you had your ladies in bathrobes, and then there's the bitchy gay husband, which is a demographic I was somewhat surprised to find in suburban America, but lo and behold, several gay couples, who I approached very nicely, very politely, asking, hey, would you be willing to sign a petition to support refugee housing? And the bitchy gay husband says to me, We don't sign petitions. Like, and, oh, okay. Of course you don't. And then there's just, your typical asshole kind of jock, not really, because he's older, kind of beer belly, but answers in a huff. He's in a meeting. I'm in a meeting. Oh, okay. But not all bad. But the worst actually is the Karen. They exist. I saw one for myself. It's like mountain lions in Maine. I mean, you don't think they might exist, but then you see one, you're like, oh, there it is. And not only did I see a Karen, I was stalked by a Karen. Yeah, I think she has rabies. Like, very angry at me, very, very, very angry at me. I don't know why, but very angry. Pulls up in her car, screech tires, jumps out, runs in my face, screaming, how dare you collect signatures for refugee housing? Really out of her mind. But worse than the Karens are the idiot husbands who just do. One husband was about to sign my petition, and then Karen came running out of the house like a maniac and had a tantrum and screamed at her husband, and he started shaking and handing back the clipboard and refused to sign. I thought, oh, you coward. So Karens are a problem, and I think the answer, my idea, is, the thing that comes to mind is we have Obamacare, so we should have Obamakaren. We need a program in place to help these women get through it. Maybe they need a bathrobe, but Obamakaren, IQ tests for the purchase of firearms. We get your angry right-wingers, the guys who just get all red in the face and just want to use the opportunity to not only tell you that they're not going to sign your petition, but that they've got a lot else on their mind, and then they just let it rip. But, I gotta say, it's the angry left-wingers who are even worse. Even worse, because they have bad clothes and they don't have a sense of humor. But most of the time, most of the people that I spoke with were lovely. And the experience of knocking on doors is one that I think everyone should experience, literally and figuratively. You need to knock on doors if you're going to be open to new opportunities. And most of the people were kind. There was the mercenaries, the women, stylish women in their sharp outfits, munching on grapes, maybe sipping a dry Sauvignon Blanc, who just saw you and felt bad that you were doing this work, and they were grateful that you were doing this work, and so they would take your clipboard and, without asking, with their clunky jewelry and their diamonds, sign your petition. Thank God for them. Thank God also for the lonely souls who met me at the door and just were happy to sign because it gave them an opportunity to have a conversation. One guy in particular comes to mind. He came out on the front steps. It was a lovely spring day. The sun was shining, a little nippy, but nonetheless beautiful. And he sat down on the steps, willing to sign my petition and have conversation. And from inside the house, you heard, "Jim, I'm out of the bathroom." And this man looked at me with kind of sad eyes and just said, oh, the joys of growing old. And he shared with me that his wife, who he'd been married to for probably 50 years, is in early stages of dementia. So her apparent bathroom habits is something that she likes to talk about, and he just listens, takes care of her, never gets to leave the house. And so many kind people behind their doors, lonely, happy to sign, happy to help, had questions. The dads of little kids, they were a favorite. The stay-at-home dads, a growing demographic. They would pepper me with questions, which I was happy to answer, and then sign, and I could tell it was mostly just conversation that they longed for with an adult. But the best part of knocking on doors are the dogs. The dogs are the best. All kinds of dogs, and all kinds of dog energy is good energy, and My takeaway from knocking on doors is to keep knocking on doors, because that's the only way doors will open, and to invest in a clean bathrobe and be more like a dog. Like that P.D. Eastman book, Go Dog Go. It's my favorite book. Big dog party. Big dogs, little dogs, red dogs, green dogs, yellow dogs, black dogs, white dogs. All at a dog party. A big dog party. And that's what we have here on the Smugsy Show. So be more like a dog. Subscribe to the show. Follow me on Twitter at SmugsyGirl. And until next time, this is Smugsy Girl signing off. However, I just remembered one of the points I wanted to make on the show was the backbiting, small town politics was so crazy for a minute. The Karen, so vicious, that for a nanosecond I thought I missed identifying as the Barstool Cougar. I missed trolling the Kirk Minihane Show and being the villain. And that says a lot, because as some of you know, I mean, the Kirk Minihane Show is one of the dumbest shows, really, I think there is. I mean, mindless, hour after hour of mindless jokes. I mean, there's definitely some jewels in there, but it's pretty low level stuff, and yet when it came to local politics, it seemed like maybe it was not that bad. So for a second, I listened to the Kirk Minihane Show again today just to see what was going on, and I heard about the super spreader in Mississippi, and I've back to knocking on doors and creating refugee housing. But it was good to be back for a second. It was good to be back for a second. And that's it for this week's show. Take care.